Scaling requires you thinking big, dreaming big, being audacious. I love the word audacious. That's like my favorite word now, because it's like audacity, isn't it? It's like, who gave me the right to say I'm gonna create a show called the UK Black Business Show when it didn't even touch the whole of the UK in its first, you know what I mean? Like the audacity to call it UK Black Business Show when probably it was just people from London in the first year.
There's a nice philosophy, South African philosophy of Ubuntu, which is I am because we are. So how do you feel like you embody that philosophy?
Again, I think all of the platforms embody it, isn't it? Because it's all about when we lift each other up, then we rise. And I'm not here, I'm only here because of the support of the community.
How can people thrive within organisations?
I love the term entrepreneurship because I think businesses, you can only grow with entrepreneurs within your company. You need people to take hold of mini projects and almost treat it like their own business, care for it like their own business, and it should bother them if something's wrong, just like the founder. So how can people kind of learn that? I think you need to act like it's your business while you're at work, which is why I go down to it when I was speaking about kind of when I was at work. I was still treating my work seriously, even though I definitely cared about the UK Black Business Show. Then, of course, my work paid me more at that point. So first of all, I've got to do my job.
If you could go back to the eve of your first Black Business Show and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Circle podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Zoe Cornebert, and today I am so thrilled to have Dr. Raphael Sofoluke join us, who is the CEO and founder of the UK Black Business Show / Week. He is also a social entrepreneur, a speaker and author. Welcome, Raphael.
Thank you for having me.
I want to kind of kick off, and I want to start with an article by Forbes that did an interview back in 2018. And it stated that there were more FTSE 100 CEOs named Steve or David than there were women and ethnic minorities combined. So that's kind of like the world you stepped into when you founded the show back in 2017. So kind of what made you say, I need to start this?
Yeah, no. Again, thank you for having me. Really excited to be here. I think, and you know, things have developed, but I wouldn't say things have completely changed since then as well at the same time. But yeah, exactly what you mentioned, that was the world that I stepped into. And it really, for me, it was just creating a platform for Black entrepreneurs and professionals to be inspired, to see role models so we can change stats like that, you know. Black leadership within companies, even now is something that needs to be really improved. So, you know, the UK Black Business Show and UK Black Business Week was created because Black people were underrepresented in business. And yeah, the show's kind of grown and developed since then.
Yeah, it has. And we're going to come on a bit later about the scale and the growth of it. But really kind of, you know, I know that the earlier days you were studying law and business. So how do you think that's kind of shaped your entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, sure. So I really liked law. I think I liked law more than business when I was doing it together. I was really good at kind of like retaining knowledge. There's a lot of reading when it comes to law as well. And I just love the different kind of parts of it, like crime, tort, all of negligence law, etc. So I think in terms of just research, law was great. It was a great beginning to help me to know how to research when I'm starting a business and different ventures. So that was great. I think the business side of it was great as well. I learned some marketing things in it. However, so I'm an entrepreneur in residence at my uni now. So I go back and I teach entrepreneurship. But I wouldn't say that my uni taught me entrepreneurship as well at the same time. I wouldn't say that I learned a lot of my business lessons from that course as well at the same time. I think I learned a lot of life lessons, which you do in uni, in terms of like meeting people, connecting, like community. So I think those were some of the key things that I learned from uni. But yeah, I probably learned some drips and drabs from my courses as well.
And so I know we talk about, again, we're going back to when you founded the show, the Black Business Show. And, you know, if we talk about the milestones and the big wins that you had at that time. So it was held at Queen Elizabeth II Centre, which is opposite Parliament, which I think there's something kind of poetic about that. You know, here you are, you have this amazing show that's catering to Black demographic, and it's opposite Parliament. So, and then also you was endorsed by London Mayor Sadiq Khan, which is also another huge win. So, you know, how does that kind of fuel you, those kind of big wins, to keep moving and progressing with the show?
Yeah, sure. I think, again, some of those things were really, really intentional at the beginning as well. So the fact that the Queen Elizabeth II Centre, so to take it back, I went to a show before I started. I went to a big show in maybe 2016 called the UK Investor Show, hence the inspiration. And it was amazing. I was working for a company and I got to go to this event. And what I noticed was that there were thousands of people there, but I couldn't see anyone that looked like myself. There was big stands, there was speakers, and that was the first time I had ever been to like an exhibition or a conference. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is almost like the hidden world that no one knows is taking place. Like exhibitions and conferences, people can walk past the Excel every day and not know there are millions of people in there attending, going to conferences. So I stood there and I thought, oh my gosh, there's no one that looks like me here. Imagine the connections that people are making, and imagine what our community are missing out on from just not attending this event, but just having events to go to. So, you know, I wanted to create an event like that, where, you know, we could hear from inspirational Black role models, whether they was a professional, whether there was an entrepreneur, a place that you can go and make connections, you know, that you can find your next business partner, that you can get a job. So yeah, that was kind of the inspiration behind it. And that show also took place at the Queen Elizabeth II Conference Centre. So when I wanted to run the show, I was like, you know, if I want to do it, I want to do it excellent. And that's my core value. One of my core values for my team is excellence, execution, and longevity. That's what I always tell my team, and that's part of our core values. So for me to do it excellently, I said, you know what? I want to do it in exactly the same venue that I visited it. I don't want to do it in how anyone else has ever done it before. I want to do it differently. So for me, I was really intentional about that. I was really intentional about, you know, getting that, when I was speaking to different people, getting that endorsement from the Mayor of London as well, David Lammy, etc. Because it all kind of adds that weight as well. So yeah, it was really, really significant then as well. But I guess even going till now we're at the biggest place we could be at the Excel, so even more exciting.
Absolutely. And then again, you know, we're still kind of talking about the earlier days. You know, there was an instance where you turned down an opportunity from a media partner who said Black people only attend shows where there is food and music.
Yeah, I can even see your face. You're like, even getting to know yourself.
Yeah, it's just like the audacity to kind of pigeonhole us, which I mean is common, unfortunately. And you know, again, you know, people questioning whether there were enough Black businesses to even put on a show like this. How do you kind of push through those naysayer moments?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was my first year. So that was my first year, 2017. All I had was like a 3-page deck, but I was just going out to different companies, media partners, to try and get them to essentially support me, because I didn't have an audience of people. It was just going to be all marketing. So yeah, it was an event. Went to meet a partner, and yeah, they said that comment, and I was, I think, really young then as well. So I was just like, I went away from the meeting. I took one of my friends to the meeting because I was excited to be with speaking to his partner, and he was like, "Oh yeah, just like add a few bits." And I was like, quite young. I was like, "No, I'm not doing it." I was just like, "No, how can they say that? No, I'll show them. I'll do it." And I think that their idea was like, maybe there's a reason why your show hasn't been done before. Kind of like, putting that kind of doubt in my head to be like, oh, maybe I should add, maybe, you know.
Yeah, fall into the
Um,
stereotype.
yeah. But I was just like, I was telling my friend at the same time, you know, black people go to events. We can eat spring rolls. We can eat. It doesn't have to be jerk and Caribbean, which we do have at our show now.
We do like that, but
do you know what I mean?
yeah.
But it's like we don't have to, or there doesn't have to be music playing. Like it's business event. Different events are different from each other. So yeah, I went away, just kind of grafted, done my own thing, and yeah. Today, I think that they come to our show. I never like to say their name because they're actually a major partner now. They've come back.
No.
So, but yeah, it's really, really interesting.
No, it is. And then again, you just kind of pushing through those moments of people who really tend to always put us in a box, which is just a bit infuriating, but it happens. So let's talk about kind of like scaling and growth. So it started with 20 exhibitors and 500 visitors approximately. And now we're over 200 plus exhibitors and around 7.5 thousand visitors. And it's the largest in the UK and Europe. So how do kind of like the expanding from one day event to a full week, like what kind of goes into that? Paint a picture of when attendees come. What does that look like?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. So huge growth.
Yeah.
From 2017 to now. So yeah, around 20. I think it's around 20 to 25 exhibitors, 500 attendees, and then on the last day of the show is 7,500 attendees. So now actually across the week is 15,000. So when you think of it, it's kind of like 500 to now 15,000 across the week. 7.5 on that one day. In terms of scaling and growth, for me, it was just that consistency. Having that consistency, because I was doing it part-time for a long time with a full-time job as well. And that was when everybody was going to work every single day in the office, 9 till 5. But I'm someone as well who's very dedicated to the work that I'm working at. So during my work hours, I will be doing my work. I'm trying to do well at work as well at the same time. But at my lunch break, I'm jumping out of a meeting and having a meeting with a corporate trying to get sponsorship. But I'm using my own time, you know, and then I'll come back home, and then maybe from 7 p.m. till 1 a.m. I'm working on the business, responding to hundreds of emails of people who want to exhibit. Because that was one thing. We booked the space for 25 exhibitors for the first year, but got over 300 inquiries. So already in the first year, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, we could have done a bigger show, which is why the show was doubling year on year. So yeah, that was kind of the growth, consistency. There was times where you know, I felt like giving up just because it was a lot, and also maybe it wasn't getting the you know, the revenue didn't match the impact, you know, in terms of, because I always say this to people, when you're doing good things, you need money to continue to do good things. I speak to a lot of business owners. They're like, oh, I'm doing this and I feel bad to ask for this amount of money. I'm like, listen, you cannot continue to do good if you're not paid well enough. So it's important, and you shouldn't be shy to ask for a certain amount of money so you can grow your team, so you can do this work on a bigger scale. So for a long time, you know, it wasn't making a lot of money. I think my first show made 10K. And then this, like, it's different ball game now. So it was that consistency, and just, you know, that desire to keep pushing on. And I talk about in terms of like community, that my community was important for me to help me to carry on. So even if I wanted to stop it, people would be messaging saying, when's the next date for the UK Black Business Show, you know? And then it got to thousands of people, and like, you can't stop it. It's now like a staple event. So that was that. 2020 couldn't do an event.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that was the only, we've been consistent each year. That's the only year we couldn't actually do an event due to kind of rules and regulations. But I would say, and that's my character. During that time, I took the time out, instead of saying, oh, actually, maybe the future's bleak for events. 2021, I came back with a whole week. So came back with a whole week of events, went from one day, I was planning throughout 2020 to actually be like, okay, we're going to do a week next year. And yeah, that was really exciting. That took off. So we kick off with like a nice launch party, which you've been to, Zoya. So you dressed up nice at the launch party.
Amazing, yes.
So, and that's just a chance to open the week. We get all of the leading Black entrepreneurs, professionals there, really nice drinks, food, etc. And then each day is really intentional. So we've got like Tuesday is like our leadership day, Black men and women business talks. Wednesday is like a tech day, but also a few other things. Thursday is like media, culture and sports. We've got like an allyship session. Fashion we've got now. Friday is like our finance day. We've also got property, and then the Saturday is like our big show now. It brings everything together. And even that's developed for now. We've got three or four stages: the main stage, career stage, entrepreneur stage, creative stage. This year we've got a tech stage coming as well at the Saturday show, lounges, hubs, loads mentoring. There's loads going on. But yeah, scaling requires a team. It requires, you cannot do this thing by yourself as well. You can have a vision, but you need people to come along with you and help you develop your vision, the right people as well. You need the right people in your team. And that's probably another conference in like hiring. That's going into a next conversation. But yeah, scaling requires you thinking big, dreaming big, being audacious. I love the word audacious. That's like my favorite word now. Because it's like audacity, isn't it? It's like who gave me the right to say I'm gonna create a show called the UK Black Business Show, when it didn't even touch the whole of the UK in its first, you know what I mean? Like the audacity to call it UK Black Business Show when probably it was just people from London in the first year. But that's what it takes, isn't it? You know, the audacity for what would the world be without people who aren't audacious, you know? No one would have went to the moon or all of these things. So that's what it takes. You've got to be brave, have the audacity to think, yeah, no one's done it, but I'm going to do it. Doesn't mean because it hasn't been done, it can't be done. And yeah, there's loads of things.
And you talk about, you know, we're talking about growth in the literal sense, but you kind of touched on having the growth mindset as well, which seems really important. And this stage that I know a lot of us are in, of this kind of like hustlepreneur, where we have our full-time jobs and we're trying to transition to something else. What kind of made you really take that leap of faith and be like, okay, this is the moment that I transition? What did that moment look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's got to be a balance, and it's different for everyone. And this is why when I'm advising people on when to take that jump, I'm very careful about what I suggest, because also everyone's life is different. There might be an entrepreneur who's got kids, a wife, etc. So maybe he has to be a bit more careful in terms of the decision he makes. Maybe there's someone else, they haven't got kids or a wife, and actually they can be a bit more to just be like, okay, I'm going to do it, I'm going to leave it. Or and then people who are younger, that maybe they don't have bills and they're staying with do you know what I mean, with their parents, and they can do some of these risks. So for me, it was just balancing everything. It was, you know, making sure when I went full-time fully at the end of 2020 and built my team 2021, had my team in 2021. And for me, I knew if I'm going to do a whole week now, I've got to have, like, it's got to be all in, but also it's money as well. Can you pay yourself? Can you pay your team? And also, is it making revenue? Do you know what I mean? Having that solid business plan to be like, okay, you can get recurring revenue in, you know? So I always say, but equally, there's been some amazing people who have just said, listen, I'm quitting my job, and they've done well. They've done incredible.
Brave.
Do you know what I mean? So that's why I'm audacious. So, and that's why I'm always like trying to juggle it out with when I'm giving that advice, because equally, I couldn't say this one works better. Equally, there's people who've married and kids and said, no, I can't stand this job anymore. I'm leaving. I'm going to set up this business. And now they're doing millions and millions. So I think it's always about understanding your circumstances, understanding where you are. If you do decide to say, okay, I'm going to go full time, you've got to work your butt off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to work really, really hard. You've got to be really intentional about going to meet people, get that revenue, have your business plan, like have all of that research, meet the right people, get in favors, you know, do all of that stuff.
And I think also you have to understand that it's no longer a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Like your hours are going to be insane. And if you can kind of commit to that mentality, you know. And I know we talk about community a lot. I want to kind of go on to your book, Together We Thrive, which is here, lovely book. And that explores immense potential of like harnessing community. So what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, sure. So I had my first book, Twice as Hard, which I published alongside my wife in 2019, 2021. I can't remember now. So I published that. That was published in the UK and US with Penguin, Random House, but under DK, which is like a subsidiary of Penguin. And I loved writing that book. Really, really interesting book. And that was a really important book for like the community. In terms of helping Black entrepreneurs and professionals, and great insights in that. And then I really wanted to write my second book. And I just kept on thinking about it. So I spoke to my agent. I was like, listen, I want to write my second book. And he was just like, yeah, cool. Let's do it. Go for it. So it was running through a number of ideas. And then the one idea that he said to me was just like, cool. The name sounds good. It sounds like it could be a bestseller. Like lots of people would be really interested. However, is that me to start talking about certain things? Which is it's not terrible, but it just didn't suit my character to maybe start promoting a book like that. So I just thought about, actually, we were just thinking, and it was just like, think about everything that I do, like, what can I give to people that maybe they don't understand, or how can I help people? And it all came down to like community. Everything that I had built, everything that I'm around is like community. So from all of my shows, the platforms, it's all about bringing the community together, whether it's the Birmingham Black Business Show in Birmingham, whether it's the Black Tech Achievement Awards in the UK and the US now, whether it's UK Black Business Week and show in London, whether it's our 25 Black entrepreneurs that we do and highlight top Black entrepreneurs in the UK. Everything came down to community. And even some of the success that I've had individually, for me, it was like community was at the heart of it, because I wouldn't have got those accolades without the community supporting me or vouching for me or speaking about me in rooms that I'm not in. So yeah, we just thought of, okay, community, and then I just thought of Together We Thrive would be cool.
And you know, when I think of when we say that, you know, oh, our community doesn't really necessarily stick together, you know, oh, this community does it better, or that community is better at building, I think there's such an untruth to that. Because you can attest to how your community is valued around you. I can certainly attest how my community is valued around me. And I think I want to mention that because I just think there's this narrative and it's really unfair. So is there kind of like, can you share like your own personal moment of when your network made a crucial difference?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all the time it happens. My network is making a difference. Whether it's, you know, referring me for opportunities, even I think even last year, so that I got put in the power list for the top 100 most influential Black people in the UK, and that was a reference. It wasn't myself that put me forward for that. You know, all of the awards people put me. So I think opportunities, whether it's me going on Sky News or BBC or etc., these are things that I've been put forward for, or I get a random email, but it's not a random email, isn't it? Someone's spoken about you and someone's passed your details. So I think almost every day I'm seeing things like that. And For me, I'm definitely someone on like connections, and if I can link someone to someone, I always do it, and it's not because I'm wanting something back, but what I've seen is that it does come back as well at the same time. Like when you do good for others, good comes back to you, you know. So I connect people. That's what I do. That's what I love doing. Like if I see two people in my mind and I think they could work well, then I connect people. And I think one of the best examples is actually a clip on YouTube, is a guy at a conference that I go to in Atlanta each year now in June. And that connection came from, I know that guy because I know Matthew Knowles, Beyonce's dad. He interviewed him for my first book. And how I know that this other guy is that Matthew Knowles was speaking to this guy in Atlanta, and just as he was about to leave, he said to him, "Oh, have you ever been to London?" And the other guy said, "No." He was like, "Well, there's a guy in London who does exactly what you do for Black entrepreneurs, but he's just doing it in the UK. You two need to know each other." Yeah. And literally, got an email connection. Matthew Knowles introducing us. And now we go to each other's conference each year. He speaks at my show. I speak at his show. He brings 3 entrepreneurs down from the US to speak at the UK Black Business Show. I take 3 entrepreneurs from the UK to speak in Atlanta in June. So even those things, those connections, people speaking about you in rooms that you don't know, like it always happens. But I think the main thing is just, do good and connect people without wanting anything back,
paying it forward.
Yeah.
Sticking on the theme of community, there's a nice philosophy, South African philosophy of Ubuntu, which is I am because we are. So how do you feel like you embody that philosophy?
Again, I think all of the platforms embody it, isn't it? Because it's all about when we lift each other up, then we rise, and I'm not here. I'm only here because of the support of the community. You go further, when you support each other, and I speak about that, and together we thrive about, the idea of, just going by yourself, like you're going to go cool, you're going to go faster, quicker, but actually as a community, you can go further, you can go deeper, into things. So I think that quote just embodies everything that I do, everything that the show, the community stands for. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so for someone listening who wants to build a strong, supportive network, but doesn't know where to start, what would your advice be?
My advice is great question. First of all, I would say these 2 things are very important: authenticity, and being intentional. I would say being intentional about where you go to find those networks. If it's something that you're interested in, there are meetup clubs online. You be really intentional about the people that you want to meet, finding groups on Facebook or on socials, etc. So being intentional is really important, but also it's the authenticity, and realizing that, first of all, you're not going to get on with everyone. You will not gel with everyone as well at the same time. There are some people who you'll have a stronger connection with. There's some people who maybe you wanted to have a strong, but equally not. But it doesn't work. So I think being intentional about where you go, who you meet, who you speak to, but also that authenticity, just being yourself, I think, because you will draw the right people to you. And when you draw the right people to you, those people will help you more. Don't draw people to you that, okay, it's a bit awkward, and draw people to you who are actually going to support you and help you. So I would say those 2 things are really, really important.
So let's switch gear a little bit. And I know earlier we were talking about that kind of like hustlepreneur mentality, but not everybody wants to be a business owner. So we talk a lot about entrepreneurship. How can people thrive within organizations?
How can people thrive? Yeah, I love the term entrepreneurship. Because I think businesses, you can only grow with entrepreneurs within your company. Yeah. You need people to take hold of mini projects and almost treat it like their own business, care for it like their own business, and it should bother them if something's wrong. Just like the founder, you know. So how can people kind of learn that? I think you need to act like it's your business while you're at work, which is why I go down to it when I was speaking about kind of when I was at work. I was still treating my work seriously, even though I definitely cared about the UK Black Business Show. Then, of course, my work paid me more at that point. So, first of all, I've got to do my job, but you need to treat, you know, what you do at work like as a business. I think you need to show up every day as much as you can. Show up your best. Some days you're not going to show up at 100% as well at the same time. But even if you show up at 50% that day and 50% was your best, show up at 50%. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So showing up each day as much as you can. I think building your network as well we talk about how important it is to network at work. You know, a lot of people, there are stats, a lot of people find jobs through connections, through people they've previously known. So that networking is important. And yeah, that having that, but also how you equipping yourself and building yourself up, you know, how are you reading books to develop yourself? Or, you know, are you doing a course on executive presence and things like that? There's so many different things you can be, again, intentional about, which will help you to become that entrepreneur within work.
And we're talking about kind of organizations. I think mental health is like quite a key theme, especially at leadership level. So you are operating on a big stage now. So how do you manage the pressure that comes with your level of leadership?
Yeah, how do I manage the pressure? I would say, great question. I think doing things to take my mind off things, you know. So I remember, I think everyone done it during 2020. I just ran. I was doing 5Ks, 10Ks. 50...
At least you was active and healthy.
Yeah, it was good.
Stayed on the sofa.
Equally, if that's what helped you to be your self-care, stay on your sofa.
Yeah.
But for me, running, getting that my own time, having my music on, doing things that takes your mind completely off things. So even when I realize when I gym with like my PT and I'm like exercising, I can't think of a business idea at that point because I'm just trying to lift this weight and it's, you know what I mean, or throw this ball. So I love the things that stop me because my mind's always ticking. I will sleep and have dreams about business ideas, or do you know what I mean, or when I'm walking, etc. So, you know, taking that time to do things that are a bit different from your day to day. I think also just celebrate your achievements as well. It's so easy to think, okay, what's the next one? No, what's the next one? And not realizing how far you've actually come, you know. And that's what, although it's very good to be ambitious and to be like, because even with my team, like part of our goals and values is to always try to outdo ourselves. We're not competing with others, we're competing with what we've done last year. So we never try to, do you know what I mean? And that's what I try to stress to myself. So of course there's always pressure, but equally our values is that we celebrate those milestones, but we don't rest on those milestones. Right. We, you know, try to go further. We push for more excellence and executions. So celebrating definitely helps, you know, having the right people around you as well, having the right support network that you can speak to. I do a lot of, I think there's a lot of like peer-to-peer mentorship, which people don't talk about in entrepreneurship and business, you know, people helping you and supporting you and just be like, oh, I'm going through this problem. Oh, what did you do, etc. So I've got loads of friends that I can, like entrepreneur friends that I can meet up with, equally just normal friends who are not entrepreneurs, that I can speak to about things. So I think those are the things. And of course, family as well, is a great distraction from everything, kids, wife, all of those things are really, really important.
Do you feel like you're good at recognizing burnout when it comes?
No. Okay. I think that, to be fair, I am, but I think previously I wasn't. So previously it would look like I would just keep on going, and then maybe, but I wouldn't feel stress, but maybe I would get like a headache or things like that, or like, oh, my chest is paining, etc. So I would go to the doctor and they'll be like, we've done all the tests and like you're completely. It's like, are you stressed? And I'm like,
Am I stressed?
I don't think so. It's like, have you got a lot going on? It's like, yeah, I'm planning this event with like X thousand. It's like, oh, okay. We think you're. Do you know what I mean? So I think it kind of comes out in a different way, and I think a few people that I know that happens to them, they don't actually, in their mind, they're not stressed.
Yeah.
But actually, it comes out in different ways, whether it's spots or things like that, headaches, etc. So I don't think I understood. I didn't understand. I couldn't recognize burnout. Now I can, because I understand how it affects me in the day to day. So whenever I feel like, okay, things are getting a bit, then it's time for me to go on holiday or something. Do you know what I mean? I recently went on holiday, and it was the first time in 9 years that I never done any work throughout the holiday for my business, which was a big thing for me, because I always thought that even when I'm on holiday, and I've been on holiday with like my kids, etc., and I'll quickly, I feel like, put your laptop
always
away,
on, right?
Yeah, or my phone, or like a big deal's coming in, and I'm just like, oh, let me just respond. But now I think, and that's part of the developing as well, like, you know, now having a team that can take care of quite a few things while I'm away. But equally, if that big deal is in my email, I know it's not going away. I can respond, and it will still be there, you know. So it was the first time in a long time that I didn't have to respond. Like, I was really intentional. I always thought, okay, if I don't respond, I'll feel more stressed when I get back home, because then there's going to be hundreds of emails. So really, I'm responding to look after future Raphael. Do you know what I mean? And so he's not stressed. But it was such a good feeling to just completely switch off. So, yeah.
And it must have been so nice to really be able to feel like you're present and living in the present. And I think it's kind of important to maintain that balance, you know, and keep on with
absolutely.
that. Okay, so if you could go back to the eve of your first Black business show and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, I love that question. What would it be?
Without any spoilers, you can't say, oh, it's going to be amazing. So, no spoilers, like just one piece of advice that could kind of like keep you going and be like, oh, okay, like spark something in you. What would that be?
The advice would just be like, don't give up on this, even though I didn't. Just be like, just be confident, and remember why you started it. You know, because sometimes there was doubts. So it's just like, oh, and then it was, like I said, it was this community who kind of helped me to carry on. But just remember why you started it. Remember why you started the show. It was to create that platform, to get people in the room, you know, to make connections, to change people's lives, whether there was an entrepreneur or a professional. So yeah, not without, you said no spoilers. So yeah, just keep going, I would say.
Keep going. So what's next for the UK Black Business Show? I know we're coming up to 10 years and you've got the Tech Awards coming as well. And so just like the continuation of that and the building of legacy.
Yeah, what's next? I'll say anything that I can create impact in, that I'll be involved in. So that could be like bigger shows in London, making the show bigger in London, more impactful, you know, understanding our audience. What does our audience need? You know, things abroad, you know, US. We do our Black Tech Achievement Awards in the US now as well. So I think any kind of territory where we feel we can make a difference, that's where we'll go next. So yeah, just bigger and better. Most importantly, just more impact. How can we support and help more people, you know? Are
you thinking about Africa as well, because that's such a huge market, you know, West Africa or South Africa? Is that something that might be on your mind for the future?
I think I've had loads of I've had a few conversations about Africa, and potentially people that could help us do it. I think for us it's also understanding, and this with team as well, capacity, right?
Yeah.
So team is like full-time team of 11, I think 11 at the moment, with loads of people helping out on the day as well. So all of that requires planning and growth as well, and also knowing when it is the right time and opportunity. So yeah, definitely wouldn't say Africa's not on the cards. Could be in the future. It's definitely an area, but the conversations are different. Will be different there. It's not talking about to get more kind of black people into companies, because Africa majority black, so it's different conversations. So I've actually had that conversation with people. Some of the conversations are about actually how do we get more women into the top positions. It's like, or how do we bring people back home to start building? It's really, really great conversations, which I would love to have those conversations as well.
Okay, so we are about to wrap up, but I always like to ask my guests about their personal values. So a value that you carry for your professional life and a value that you carry for your personal life. So let's start with your professional life.
Value for my professional life is excellence. I'm obsessed with making everything fantastic, making it the best it can be, because my main thing is, even with what we do, I want it to stand up against the best events, that you go to, not just events in our community or outside. It needs to be the best, whether it's black event, whether it's a white event, whether it's Asian. I want it to be a top event. So excellence is everything I do. I would say that's my professional.
And for your personal?
Probably crosses over, I'll say generosity. So generosity, I think always like to give and support, whether it's giving my time. I know a lot of people gave me their time as well when I started up. It's so easy for people to get to a certain position and they forget that actually these people done so much for me when I didn't have a platform, or when people barely knew about the UK Black Business Show, when there was not that many attendees, and they came and they spoke and they were a bigger name then. Of generosity as well.
Well, speaking of generosity of time, thank you so much for taking your time out. I know you're a very busy man. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and everything that you're doing, everything that you will go on to do. So if people want to follow your journey, where can they find you?
Sure. So I would say, first of all, UK Black Business Show websites. Yes. So ukblackbusinessshow.co.uk and ukblackbusinessweek.com. You'll probably find all the details to like our Black Tech Achievement Awards, Birmingham Black Business Show, socials, UK at UKBB Show, and myself at Raphael Sofoluke socials as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And guys, thank you again for joining us. And you can find the Black Circle podcast on all of our socials, Black Circle Podcast. And as always, like, follow, subscribe and share. Thank you.